CSL Primetime is brought to you by Jevova Sports Uniforms and Apparel. Jevova, giving you sports experience for a lifetime. This is Jevova CSL Primetime. Hey folks, I'm Alex Bastivansky, and those who were expecting business as usual in the playoffs were given a rude awakening last weekend. Upsets were rampant, and we'll have all the highlights for you coming up. Jason DeThomasis will join me here in the studio to break down what happened and to preview the championship final, which is coming up this weekend. But first, let's get to those Jevova semifinal highlights, and we might as well start off with the big boys. First seeded York Region have been a force all year, regular season champions, and they were so dominant, they finished 18 points ahead of second place Ukraine, so obviously they were overwhelming favorites to capture the playoff title as well. But Hamilton had other ideas. They were one of the CSL's hottest squads over the second half of the season, and they were intent on spoiling York's quest for the double. Game highlights now brought to you by Jevova Sports Uniforms and Apparel. Jevova, giving you sports experience for a lifetime.
Hamilton actually provided one of York's two losses during the regular season, but the game was almost entirely York from the opening whistle. 5th minute, O'Dane Simpson, Richard West to Anthony Badul, Adrian Becic, monster stop, and this would be the theme of the game. York coming at Hamilton, Becic coming up huge. Second half, the trend continued. York on the attack, Hamilton sitting back. Finally, it burns them in the 76th minute. Super sub David Guzman slams it home. The universe appears to be unfolding as York expected it to. They lead 1-0, but just 2 minutes later, Fran Grabeza bends Gerard Ladieu into a pretzel before slotting it home, and oh boy, could an upset be brewing. 1-1 through 90, extra time solved nothing, penalty kicks. First up, Zdenko Jurcevic, no problem, he puts it home. And then Richard West up for York, he tucks it perfectly just under the bar. Hamilton up next, and it's the first miss as they blow it over top of the iron, but then Ricky Heron steps up and he returns the favor, missing as well. Miroslav Cabrillo slips, but still manages to beat Ibanez. And Evan Butler for York, stunned by Adrian Brickwall Becic, and York are in a world of trouble now. But Ibanez gives his boys a fighting chance by denying Fran Grabeza, but then incredibly, O'Dane Simpson blows it over the bar as well, so it's up to Igor Kramar to finish it, and that's exactly what he does. Hamilton chops down the Giants, and York Region stunningly are gone in the semifinals. 3-1 on penalties, Hamilton takes it. It's amazing. For all of York's firepower, they only convert one of their penalties, and the boys from Steeltown are off to the championship final.
Well, FC Ukraine United and the Serbian White Eagles tangled in the other semifinal on Sunday. Now, second-seeded Ukraine had finished the season by ripping its opposition for 11 goals over their last 3 games. They were an offensive powerhouse this season, leading the CSL with 45 goals overall. But Sunday, they ran into a Serbian squad that's been lights out defensively. It was the league's top offense against one of the stingiest defenses, and Ukraine picked the wrong time to go cold.
This ended up being a pretty tight game. Not a ton of chances overall, but the Serbs had the best one in the first half. Jordi Josic rips it just wide of the goalpost. And as mentioned, pretty quiet first half, but things picked up dramatically in the second frame. Serbia's Branislav Vukomanovic right on the doorstep, but Danilo Lazar plays hero for Ukraine as he clears it off the line at the last second and gets a big thank you from keeper Nazar Litvin. 71st minute now, Serbs finally break through, and it's a defensive breakdown by Ukraine as they get caught ball watching in the box. Miroslav Jovanovic from about 10 yards out here, he chips it home, and you think he was happy? He goes nuts, the large pro-Serbian crowd goes nuts, and Ukraine now has just 18 minutes to try to crank up its offense, or they will be bye-bye. They tried, but just could not get it done. The cross comes in for Golden Boot winner Sergei Ivliev. It's a heck of a header here, but it screams just over top of the bar, and that's the kind of day it was for Ukraine as their big guns go silent. 1-0 Serbia, your final. A much-deserved win as the Serbs controlled the play for long stretches, and they push through to the championship final, so it is on. Over the years, we've seen some epic CSL games in the championship, and this one promises to be no different. Who will triumph and capture the big prize? Sunday, October 30th is the date. Birchmount Stadium, the place in Scarborough. 2 p.m. the kickoff. 4th-seeded Serbia taking on 6th-seed Hamilton. And you can head to CanadianSoccerLeague.ca to get all your ticket information. It's going to be an amazing tilt.
Welcome back to Jevova CSL Primetime. Well, the first division wasn't the only one playing for keeps last weekend. The second division championship went down from Birchmount Stadium. Now, the second division nurtures young talent for the step up to the main team. And if Saturday's game between York and Atomic was any indication, the future is bright indeed as the teams went toe-to-toe in an epic championship tilt.
York actually finished 11 points behind Atomic in the standings, but of course that meant nothing now. Big story on the day was the weather. Frigid, windy, freezing. In other words, a good Canadian day for soccer. These squads didn't disappoint. Ball pops to Ihor Fedician here. The Atomic player smokes it just wide though. York think they've struck first in the 42nd minute as the free kick pops to Simon Peterson out front. Alas, that pesky flag goes up and it is nullified. Still scoreless. Just before the halftime whistle, nice ball movement by Atomic here, but Adam Major comes up huge. And as you'll see, he did that all game for York. He makes the stellar save. Now, an Atomic player picked up 2 yellows in the first. That reduced Toronto to 10 players. Didn't phase them though. They continued to press. Corner kick. Look at the header by Hassan Abdelmini. I'd hate to play pool against this guy. In it goes from the ridiculous angle, and Atomic down a man or up 1-0 through 54 minutes. And they would press for a second goal. Bogdan Polichkov strolls in here, but Major there again to deny. York would equalize though in the 75th minute off an absolutely wild play. Abakar Mahamat rings it off the bar, but then he gets his own rebound and puts it home, and York loses its collective mind. It's all knotted up at 1 apiece late in the contest, and that's how it would stay through 90 minutes. So they went to extra time. Now, take a look at this play here. Atomic's Ihor Fedician is pretty heated, and he confronts David Romano, who promptly goes judo on him with the takedown. What was Fedician so angry about? Let's take another look. Watch the sly little trip here by Romano that drops Fedician. He gets up but doesn't actually make contact with Romano, who flips him over. The end result, though, is that both Romano and Fedician get hit with red cards, which naturally incensed Atomic, who were trying to point out that Fedician didn't actually do anything. Regardless, both teams go down a man, and Atomic are now down to just 9 on the pitch, and York would take full advantage. 106 minute, gorgeous passing by the shooters. Mahamat out front gets his second of the game, and York can feel it. They're just minutes away from hoisting that beautiful trophy, but hold on for just a moment. Don't count your chickens just yet. Dying seconds now. Atomic on the charge, and Ihor Melnik gets dropped inside the box, and referee Mike Bradley points to the spot. Now, York were upset, claiming it looked like he got most of the ball there, but didn't matter. Ihor Melnik on the spot. Adam Major plays the hero with the save of all saves to keep the lead intact. But moments before the final whistle, Atomic think they've equalized as Melnick heads it home off the free kick here. But their favorite linesman puts his flag up to nullify the goal, and moments later the celebration was on.
The goalie guy. What a save, bro. First team, let's get it, boys!
What an incredible game. This one had everything, but in the end, the young shooters team pulls it out with a dramatic 2-1 win. Afterwards, the hero for York Region, keeper Adam Major, stopped by to talk about the penalty save and what this win means to him and his mates.
Well, in training, we practiced penalties a lot during the past 2 weeks, and I could tell sort of by his run-up that he was kind of going there. I mean, it's kind of nice to save the shot like that, but I mean, it's nice, but no goalkeeper wants to have to be put under that pressure at the end of the game for his team, do or die. But I'm just happy that, you know, we practiced a lot of that stuff. I got a lot of practice with it, and it paid off in the end. It feels amazing, honestly. I think it's the first time ever in the club's history since the first and second division split. I mean, it's the first time we've won it, so it's an amazing feeling, you know. As far as the teams go across the league, we're probably one of the youngest teams, so it was very nice on that point. You know, the guys fought hard all season. We didn't do as well as we thought we should have during the season, but we proved our point here in the playoffs that we're a top quality team and we can contend, and we showed that. And you know, the final was just ridiculous. I mean, it was just crazy. It was end to end all game, lots of drama with reds and yellow cards. No, but credit to Atomic. I mean, they went down 2-3 guys, but you know, they never stopped fighting. They were playing hard right to the end. They almost tied it up and sent it to penalties. And you know, it was, you know, credit to the guys too for just keeping the ball out of the net, keeping the play going forward for us. So it was a huge win for sure.
Welcome back to Jabova CSL Primetime. Alex Bastivansky joined now by Jason DeThomas to break down all the crazy stuff, the craziness from this past weekend. First and second division. Yeah, it's DC's Breakdown brought to you by Days Inn Hotel, the official hotel of the Canadian Soccer League. And you know what, before we head to the first division stuff, let's talk about the second division, which is obviously so important in the Canadian Soccer League. Fantastic game, wasn't it?
Oh, incredible game, back and forth. It was. It wasn't quite the first division tilt, but it was fantastic for the fan, and it was great to watch.
And you know what? Obviously, congrats to York Region for winning the game, but Atomic for so much of the game down by a man. First, they were down to 10 men, then they were down to 9 men. So a fantastic performance by them to stay that close for so long, wasn't it?
They scored a goal man down. There's not much more you can ask. They're in the game. Usually at that point, you're playing for a shootout, but they score a goal and they actually almost won the game.
Okay, so great second division tilt, but really let's get on to the first division now. And number 1 seed gone, number 2 seed gone. It was a weekend of shockers. Maybe not so much, you know, as funny as York Region were the favorites going into the playoffs, so dominant all year. We both had Hamilton as a dark horse, but I guess still at the end of the day, when people read the final score line, they were kind of shocked, weren't they?
Going into this, Hamilton wasn't quite of a role, and they did upset York during the season, and they had some big wins. But going into it, York with their dominance all year, Hamilton had a chance, but I thought York was all the way.
York so powerful all season on offense, and they got to the penalty kicks. And just talk about that for a second, because you were shocked by that yourself. So much firepower, yet they only could convert on 1 of the 5 kicks.
Going into penalty kicks, I think all the pressure's on York. Going in, they're the favorite. They're one of the highest scoring teams in the league, and they have been so over the last couple of years. I think it was just quite a bit of pressure, and obviously scoring 1 goal, it got to them.
So you know the team really well, the York Region team. What kind of feeling are they going to be left with after this year? Obviously, it was a historic season. They win the regular season championship. 10 goals allowed all year. We can talk on and on about their dominance in the regular season, but in the playoffs, they falter. What kind of taste in their mouth are they going to have after this? Are they going to look back at it as a positive season, or is it going to be mostly disappointment, do you think?
If it's me personally as a player, I've gone through something similar where we won the league and we lost first round playoffs. It's disheartening. It's hard for you to get up for the next season, but you have to look back at the positives, because you know that an 18-point gap from first to second, their defensive their defensive dominance. It's something that you need to carry yourself forward next year. But as a player, I'm sure that one's going to say that the regular season is done and playoffs is where it matters, and obviously it didn't work out.
Yeah, well, it's kudos on a great regular season. Unfortunately, just as you mentioned, faltered in the playoffs. There's always next season. Let's move on now to Ukraine, the number 2 seed against the number 4 Serbs. A back and forth game this was. 2 evenly matched teams, of course, just 3 points separated them in the regular season. And in the end, it is Serbia that ends up triumphing.
Serbia had a great regular season. They had a bit of a month where they weren't playing to their potential that you and I thought that they could play. Ukraine, their main advantage was obviously their firepower up front. They got shut out, and credit to Serbs, fantastic game, well-deserved win.
Serbs, I think you would agree, I don't know if I would call it they dominated, but they certainly dominated stretches of this game. And this is probably one of the better games I've seen them play this year, if not the best. They really came out full force.
Yeah, you know what? Playoffs is the most important part of the season, and obviously they came to play, and they showed their dominance early on. And I think Ukraine, in their head, they knew that their weakness was defense. And they want to keep the goals to a minimum, but I think focusing on that.
They sacrificed one for the other, so to speak?
I believe that's what happened.
Well, we talked about the defense and the problems that Ukraine has had defensively this year. At one point, they'd actually allowed the most goals in the league, and they managed to get control of that later on. But the goal, talk about the goal that Serbia scored, the lone goal in the game, defensive breakdown by Ukraine. They were scrambling on it, weren't they?
Yeah, it was a cross. Could have been a goal off a header, but it was the player tried heading it back in the box. It was a miscue, ball dropped. A little bit fortunate for the Serbs, but the Ukraine players were just standing around. Yeah. No one could find the ball, and it looked like you said, a miscue.
There was a lot of ball watching there, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, I would think so, yeah.
Yeah, and Serbia capitalized, and great celebration for obvious reasons after the goal, because that was the only one. And that was the point where Ukraine actually started to turn it on. Up to that point, now it needs to be mentioned, of course, Ukraine, throughout the regular season, Ukraine was the highest scoring team in the entire league. In this game, they did not look like that. As Jason mentioned, it was sort of like sacrificing one thing for the other, their offense for their defense. But once they allowed the goal, that's when they turned it on, and they started coming on full force for the last 20 minutes. But it was like, well, where was the offense for the first 70 minutes, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think going into this game, obviously, they're the number 2 seed. Obviously, from the last point of the season, they jumped. But I think Serbs were favored going in. And Ukraine, they were focusing on something too much. They didn't want to lose, put it that way. And I think that after they're down 1-0, they had nothing to lose. And going forward, they showed their offensive power, but it was too late.
So that sets up the grand finale, the championship game from Birchmount Stadium on Sunday, October 30th. Kickoff at 2 p.m. Tremendous history of CSL finals over the years. It's always packed stands and a great event. You can head to CanadianSoccerLeague.ca for more information on the big game. And stick around with us, because when we come back from break, we're going to have our championship final preview. More Jovova CSL Primetime coming up in just a moment. Welcome back to Jevova CSL Primetime. Alex Bastiavansky joined by analyst Jason DeThomasis in the studio. As DT's breakdown continues, it is our championship final preview between number 4 Serbia and number 6 Hamilton. Let's take a look at the stats between these two teams, Jason, for the season. Season series tied 1-1. August 12th, Serbia and Hamilton tied 0-0. August 27th, a contentious game that ended up, of course, in that famous bench-clearing brawl that we'll talk about a little bit, that Serbia was awarded a 2-0 victory on, which was a little bit bizarre. And Hamilton September 30th, Hamilton 2-1 over the Serbs. And as we mentioned, this is a delicious matchup for many, many reasons. But if you like a little controversy and you like a little, went to a soccer game and a hockey game broke out, the date that we mentioned, game number 2 between these two, the bench clearing brawl that happened. I think it'd be fair to say some bad blood will still be there between these two teams. It hasn't been that long.
Oh, definitely. It's in every player's mind. Not that they're out to get another player, if you want to put it that way, but it's still going to be something that you want to prove and you want to show that you're there to win. And it might be a little bit chippier than a normal final, but that always makes for a good game.
Now, they did have a game since then, and they behaved themselves and turned out to be a great game. That was the one that Hamilton won 2-1. Just give us a couple points. What are the main things you're looking at going into this game that you think are going to play a big part?
So Hamilton's on a roll going into this. I think they've been one of the hottest team, if not the hottest team coming into it. They're the only team to beat York twice in the season, so that's obviously huge confidence for them. Serbia, like we said a couple times, they had a great stretch. They were down for a bit, and now they're coming back to form. I think Serbia's got to keep their game plan consistent. They're a high-pressure team. They play with plenty of velocity. And Hamilton's a team where they're going to break up a play, do a quick counterattack. They have great forwards. So I think it's going to be, I guess, the tale of two tapes. You're going to have Hamilton trying to go through the middle, and Serbia's going to be high-pitched down the wings, getting the balls in for crosses.
Let's take a look at the stats on Hamilton then. 6th in the standings. They had a 6-10-5 record. 31 goals scored, 38 against, but this was, like Jason said, it was a tale of two teams this season. Awful first half of the year, very strong. Over the second half, though, they defeated Scarborough 3-0 in the quarterfinal and defeated York on penalty kicks in the semis. There are many reasons to be wary of this team, as mentioned, one of the hottest teams over the second half of the season. But the interesting one, which you actually took the words out of my mouth, was the only team to beat York twice. That says something, doesn't it?
It's got to be a huge confidence booster. And plus, other teams coming in are going to look at Hamilton and say, these are the guys that beat the top dog, if you want to call it that. And it's going to be something that they're thinking about. And I think going into this game, Hamilton has a slight advantage.
Speaking of top dogs, their top dog for most of the season was Drazen Vukovic, the Croatian import. Every year, one of the top scorers in the league. He's going to be key for them.
You always need a key man. He's a guy that's either going to draw the attention away for his other players to actually score a goal, or he's going to be the guy to put the ball in the back of the net and win the game for them. He's huge to them either way.
And of course, one of the main reasons for their surge in the second half of the season was getting that supporting scoring. And for them, it was Danko Djurcevic, who last year had 21 goals. This year, he was snake-bitten for much of the season, but then really came on strong over the second half of the year and tied Drazen for goals with 7 overall. And also Miroslav Cabrillo, the hometown boy, chipping in with 4 goals. That secondary scoring was essential to their turnaround in the second half of the season, wasn't it?
100%. That experience, it's just something it's an essential element. So if you have one player scoring 7 goals, one coming off from 21 goals last year, he doesn't forget how to score. It's obviously a bad spell. In the playoffs, they've stepped up, and in the final, it's going to be a handful. DT's
keys remain disciplined, limit fouls, high defensive line, and possession. You'll notice remain disciplined and limit fouls is there for both teams on this because of what happened previously. Serbia, 4th in the standings, which tied them with Toronto Atomic, 9-9-3 record. They defeated Atomic 1-0 in the quarters and Ukraine 1-0 in the semis. Your impressions of Serbia this year, Jason?
So we've always said Serbia's been a fantastic team year in and year out. They have great players, and they've been a pretty solid core. They have obviously a few new players coming in, but that team has been always a competitive team. Back when I was playing, they're always a top team to beat. And coming into this, they're on a roll as well as Hamilton. Not quite as hot as Hamilton, but I think that coming in, they're full of confidence of, well, if they stick to their game plan, they should obviously be competitive, but I'm still giving a slight edge to Hamilton.
Milos Simpanovic, 9 goals this year, always up near the top of the goal-scoring race. I know you always mention Milos as well. He's going to be key for them, isn't he?
He's a dangerous player. He's either a great passer of the ball or he's going to score himself. So if you give him a step, he's going to take a yard, and just watch out for a bullet to the top corner.
DT's keys for Serbia remain discipline, limit fouls, of course, stretch Hamilton backline, Stepanovic as the target man. So, again, folks, the final this Sunday, October 30th, 2 p.m. kickoff from Birchmount Stadium. You can go to CanadianSoccerLeague.ca for directions and ticket information. It is going to be fantastic. Make sure you get out there and check out the game this weekend. Thank you so much for being here, buddy. You're going to be there on the final, obviously.
Oh, of course, big game.
Checking it out. Looking forward to it. You get out there and watch as well. Take care, folks. Thanks for watching Jabova CSL Primetime. We'll see you next week.